Thanks, everybody. Really good to be here. Gorgeous day. Thank you for being inside on this beautiful day. It's been a long time since I've been here at the San Francisco Veg Fest. I live over in Oakland, so it's always nice to drive over to San Francisco. That's a lie. I never like coming to San Francisco because it's usually too cold and I can't take it, but it's beautiful out and I'm very happy. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page because there's a lot of confusion and misconceptions about what vegan means. So I just want to make sure that we all understand, because there's a notion that there's like vegan food over here and then like regular food over here, like vegan food is its own separate food group. So I just want to make sure if we all understand, we've all heard of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and mushrooms and grains and herbs and spices. All those familiar to you? Good. And when we're talking about baked goods, we're talking about flour and sugar and baking soda and baking powder and yeast and cocoa and chocolate. Have you heard of all of those things? Okay. Just want to make sure, because there's a lot of misconceptions. Even vegans are confused too, because vegans can overuse the word vegan, because even when vegans are together, all they talk about is vegan food. How they've been out to this restaurant, they had a really good vegan meal and the dessert was amazing. The vegan dessert was fantastic. Everything was vegan. We know it's vegan, you're vegan. So you don't have to keep saying the word vegan. And it does feed this notion that it's kind of a separate food group because there's not like vegan bananas and bananas, there's just bananas. So we need to stop talking about vegan food like it's different, right? We need to take vegan food out of the box called vegan so that it's more familiar and we recognize that it's just food we all love, we all eat, we're all familiar with, right? Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page. So, indeed, my name is Colleen Goudreau, and the mission in my work is to empower people to make informed food choices, to debunk myths about veganism, to be a voice for animals, and to give people the tools and resources they need to live according to their own values of compassion and wellness. I always say that I'm not asking anyone to live according to my values. I'm urging people to live according to their own values. And I see people making this change all the time. I'm incredibly encouraged by it. I'm someone who really lives by hope. I've been doing this work specifically as a vegan advocate for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of people make changes. I'm encouraged by the best part of my job is that I get to hear from people whose lives have been transformed, whose compassion has been deepened, whose lives change when they make this change. So we see people making this change all the time, and I'm encouraged by it. They're making it for a number of reasons. Some people are doing it for health reasons. Some people are doing it for ethical reasons, environmental reasons. Pick a reason, and any one of them is reason enough to make a change in this direction. So we see people making a change in this direction. People are saying, everyone's saying today, now is the best time to go vegan than ever before. Well, you know, I went vegan 20 years ago and it was the best time then too. It's always the best time to go vegan. But certainly in terms of the availability of different products, and cheeses are better than they've ever been, which is fantastic. So that is true, and I'm encouraged by that. And yet, despite all of the information we have and all of the knowledge we have about how beneficial it is to eat plants over animals, people still have a lot of difficulty making this change. People are blocked, people have excuses, people don't make a change, and there's a million reasons for that we don't have time to get into right now. Some of it has to do with our own conditioning in our own families, being part of the status quo. Some of it has to do with the messages that we're bombarded with thousands of times a day that we should consume as much meat, dairy, and eggs as possible. There's a lot of reasons why people have these blocks. And we also sabotage it as well. We also sabotage our own progress because of the excuses that we use that stop us from making the changes that we know would be beneficial even to us. So we're going to talk about what some of those blocks are today. Of course, they can be categorized into nutrition and food and the social aspects. I always joke about the fact that, of course, when you become vegan, you think you're just eating plants over animals, but you really wind up becoming an expert in nutrition and anthropology and history and culinary arts and everything under the sun. So it's helpful to just have a couple things in our back pocket so that we don't feel that it's defeatist, that we don't feel that this is impossible. So certainly around the nutrition aspects, one of the reasons we're so blocked, first of all, I think we're really obsessed with single nutrients to our detriment today. I don't think we need to obsess over single nutrients the way we do, but we all do. And we're all taught that the nutrients we need are animal-based. If I were to ask you where we're supposed to get calcium, you would say, no, you wouldn't say kale. Because we're not taught that. I think it's getting better. I think people are starting to recognize that it's not just cow's milk but kale is obviously, I'll get there. If I were to ask you where we're supposed to get our omega-3 fatty acids, you would say, I knew you were going to say that. All right, I'm done. You're done. You don't need me. You're like, fine. You're fine. We're taught that we should get omega-3 fatty acids from fish, and we're taught, if I said where we're supposed to get our protein, that we should be getting our protein from meat, dairy, eggs, kind of all of it. Again, we're obsessed with these single nutrients. We're obsessed with protein. We're obsessed with protein. Everyone says, protein, where'd you get your protein? Where do the vegans get the protein? I need my protein. I tried being vegetarian, but I needed my protein. And I said, how did you know you needed protein? I just needed my protein. How did you know? I was tired, and I needed protein. Well, maybe you didn't get enough sleep last night. But lethargy isn't protein deficiency. Maybe you were just tired. Well, I wasn't feeling well. My doctor said I was anemic. Okay, that's iron deficiency. That's not protein deficiency. How do you know? My body told me. What did your body say? Because I don't understand my body half the time. So how did you know what your body was talking about? So everyone's obsessed with protein, but no one could tell you what protein deficiency actually looks like, right? Let me just do one more little survey in here. Could you raise your hand if you've heard of heart disease? Raise your hand if you've heard of cancer, diabetes. Raise your hand if you know anybody on blood cholesterol lowering medication or blood pressure lowering medication. Raise your hand if you know someone with kwashiorkor. Kwashiorkor? There's nobody in this room with kwashiorkor? There's not a hospital ward, the kwashiorkor hospital ward, no specialists in the room? That's really odd because we're so obsessed with protein deficiency, and kwashiorkor is the scientific term for protein deficiency. So you'd think we'd know someone with this disease, or that there would be hospital wards dedicated to this particular deficiency. We've seen people with kwashiorkor when we see organizations who do appeals for hunger organizations for people who are starving. They're not getting enough protein because they're not getting enough food, right? But all of those conditions and diseases that you said you were familiar with, those are diseases of excess. We don't have diseases of deficiency. Anybody with scurvy in the house? Rickets? Anybody? Beriberi? Nobody? No. We don't have diseases of deficiency in our culture in developed nations. The problems we have are diseases of excess. The things that we're getting too much of, and it happens to be animal protein. It doesn't happen to be kale. No one's telling you to stop eating broccoli. They're telling you to stop eating meat, right? So the point is that we don't have diseases of deficiency. So the question isn't where do vegans get their protein? The question is why have we all been taught that we need to go through an animal to get to the nutrients that the animals get because the animals eat plants? We need to skip the middle animal and go directly to the plants for our nutrients because that's where they reside. And when we skip the middle animal, we skip the saturated fat, the dietary protein, the dietary cholesterol, the protein, the lactose, all of the things that are problematic. And we get the vitamins, we get the minerals, we get the phytonutrients, we get the folate, we get the fiber, we get everything that originates in plants and that is helpful and not harmful, right? So that's the idea. Because the idea that we go through an animal to get to the nutrients that the animals would get if they ate plants makes absolutely no sense from a resource perspective, from a health perspective, from an ethical perspective, right? I mean, just from a resource perspective alone, when you look at something like calcium, first of all, what is calcium? Thank you. Start there. Calcium is a mineral. And where are minerals found? In the ground. And why do cows have calcium in their milk? Because they would theoretically eat grass, they would eat some of the dirt, they would eat the minerals that come up from the ground, right? That's theoretical because most dairy cows are not eating plants, they're kept on dry lots. And so that the dairy industry can live up to the marketing claims that it's a high calcium food, what do they do to their feed? They supplement their feed with calcium. You could supplement your feed with calcium. Like, you could just supplement your feed with calcium, or you could go right to the kale, and you can go right to the green leafy vegetables that are rich in calcium, right? But we don't do that. We go through the cow. And of course, that's incredibly resource intensive and incredibly unnecessary and incredibly difficult on the cow. Of course, to start with milk, you have to start with the cow, you have to start with a pregnant cow. At the end of the 9 months where she's pregnant, she just wants her baby. She can't have her baby because we take it away and we kill the baby if he's male, and 50% are. The female goes into the same servitude as her mother, and then she's killed at the end of her profitability, which is about 4 or 5 years, and they would live up to 20 years in nature, right? or we could just go straight to the kale and get our nutrients there. So that is one of the things that you don't have to become an expert in nutrition to understand this. You do not have to get a degree in nutrition to understand that the calcium resides in the green leafy vegetables. And when it comes to taking in our nutrients, it's not just about taking them in, it's also about absorbing them and not losing them. And when you take in calcium, or you think you're getting calcium from cow's milk, you're only getting about 30%, and that includes also a lot of other problematic crap. But when you get the calcium from kale, you're getting about 50%. So just from an absorption perspective, and it's less resource intensive, et cetera. Does that make sense? And when it comes to omega-3 fatty acids, it's the same thing. The omega-3 fatty acids, why do fish have omega-3 fatty acids in their body? Because they eat algae. I think she's good. You just need to come up here and just do this. So the fish theoretically eat algae, but most fish today, especially the fatty ones that we're told that we're supposed to consume for their omega-3 fatty acids, they're factory raised. They're not putting algae in their tanks. They're putting pesticides and they're putting antibiotics, but they're not getting algae, so they supplement it. So you're also not getting the omega-3 fatty acids from the fish, and there are problems with absorption as well. So you can skip the middle fish and go directly to the omega-3 fatty acids through whole foods like walnuts and flax seeds, or directly to DHA, which is sourced from algae, right. So again, skipping all of that resource-intensive, unnecessary animal sense. Does that make sense? And you can do that with every nutrient. I mean, B12 is one of the nutrients, the nutrients we need are plant-based, not animal-based, but in the case of B12, it's neither. It's not plant-based, but it's not animal-based either. It's made on bacteria. You don't, again, I'm just superfluous here. So it's made by bacteria, but most of the B12 supplements today manufactured, or fed directly to livestock because they're not eating grass. Cattle and chickens who are raised for meat are not eating plants, which is what they would do in nature because they're vegetarian. And they would be getting the nutrients, they'd be getting the minerals, they'd be getting the micronutrients, et cetera, but they're not. So most of the B12 supplements are fed directly to livestock. Skip the middle animal and go directly to the source, right? So those are some of the blocks around nutrition. Some of the blocks are also around food. And most of them have to do with our own self-perception and our own blocks, i.e. laziness blocks. Laziness blocks. Because most people have a perception, first of all. I've never met anyone when I tell them I'm vegan who doesn't say, I don't eat a lot of meat or dairy or eggs. There's not one person I've ever met who doesn't say, I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't eat a lot of meat. So we have this perception of ourselves, and then there's reality. But the truth is you really don't know how much you do of anything until you stop. We are such creatures of habit. You don't know how much you're eating of anything until you stop doing it. When you stop, you can recognize your patterns, you can recognize your habits. It's one of the reasons I created the 30-day vegan challenge, is to say stop long enough to not only stop your regular habits, but to replace them with new ones. Because what happens is everything we do, we are such creatures of habit. How we eat, what we eat, how we plate our food, how we celebrate with food, everything is based on habit. They're cultural habits, they're societal habits, they're personal habits, they're familial habits, right? Everything we do. And so what happens is, it comes time, it's lunchtime, it's dinner time, we go over here, we're like, what am I gonna order? I'm gonna have my burger. When you at least commit to something like the 30-day vegan challenge, you say, wait, hold on, I'm doing this 30-day vegan challenge, what's over here? And you look in this direction that you've never looked in before. It's not that the options weren't here before, it's that you just didn't look over here because you were so stuck in your habits over here. So stopping long enough to just kind of shift and say, what's over here? Let me try some new things. Because everyone will tell you, when you make the shift from all those habits based on animal products over to plant-based, everyone will tell you that you think it's going to be more restrictive, but it is more expansive. You try cuisines you've never tried before. You try foods you've never tried before. You try flavors you've never tried before. And that becomes second nature when you just switch from here to here, right? So they're all habits. Switching habits doesn't mean just letting go of them. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is they say, I'm going to stop eating animal products or stop eating meat, dairy, eggs, whatever it is, but they don't replace those old habits with new ones. You're the new habits over here, by the way. So they don't replace them with new ones. So some of it has to do, again, with kind of changing our paradigm, changing the way we think about things. And that means doing some new things, especially when it comes to being in the kitchen and cooking. Because I've heard every excuse in the book. I know what people are saying. I know the blocks they have. A lot of it has to do with not having time. People say they don't have time. Everyone's so busy. We don't have time to cook. We don't have time to chop vegetables. If we have time to get in a car and drive to a restaurant and look for a parking spot and wait for a table and sit at the table, decide what to order, wait for the food, eat the food, and drive back home again, we probably have some time to chop some vegetables. Just saying. It's not that we don't have time. It's how we use the time we have. And we make choices all the time. I know somebody's watching, I don't know, name the reality show. I mean, we sit down and it's fine to obviously sit down and have some time to relax. But the point is, if we don't think we have enough time to take 15 or 20 or 30 minutes a day to chop some vegetables and nourish ourselves and nourish our families, then whatever we think is more important than that isn't going to mean much when we're not healthy enough to enjoy it. If we don't have time to be sick, we need to make time to be healthy. And we're responsible for that. We're the ones who make that choice. That's not because of necessarily only advertising. Of course, we're all encouraged to eat out and to get fast food and frozen food and packaged food. But if we don't think 15 minutes is a reasonable amount of time, I think we may need to reprioritize. And this isn't just vegans I'm talking about. Everybody should be chopping vegetables. People say, I'd be vegan, but I don't have time. Really? Because you're not chopping any vegetables right now? Because however you're eating, wherever you are in the spectrum, everyone should be chopping some vegetables. Now here's the thing. Grocery stores have figured out that people don't want to chop vegetables, so they're chopping the vegetables for you. So you can go to a grocery store and you can buy vegetables already chopped. Now you're going to be paying some more money, but we always decide if we want to pay money or if we want to pay in time. We want to spend money, we want to spend our time. And that can vacillate. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe there's some weeks you know you're going to be busier, you want to get some vegetables chopped in advance. That's fine. But you can chop them in advance yourself also. We have these blocks. If we look in the refrigerator and we have carrots with their tops on, and we have cauliflower that's still in a bunch, and we have broccoli that's still in a head, we open the refrigerator and we go, there's nothing to eat in this house. And we close the refrigerator because we're like, it's going to take so long to chop the vegetables and I don't have time. So we call the pizza guy and we have time to wait for the pizza guy. But we don't chop the vegetables, so our refrigerators turn into compost bins, and then we're like, why do these vegetables go so bad? Like, how can I keep the vegetables? How do you stop vegetables from going bad? Here's a tip. Write this down. Eat them. That's the best way you can stop vegetables from composting in your refrigerator. It's a tip. I know, it's brilliant. Like, I thought about that for a long time. It's just common sense, right? So just chop the vegetables. If you come home from the grocery store, just chop them up and put them in the refrigerator. If you have a recipe you're making and it calls for 1 onion, chop 2 onions at the same time. You've got your cutting board out, you've got your knife, just chop 2 onions. And then people say, yeah, I heard it's not really good for vegetables to be sitting in the refrigerator if they're already chopped up because you're going to lose nutrients. And I said, really? Because how many vegetables? Do you eat a lot of vegetables now? No, I need to eat more vegetables. Okay, well, here's a tip. Vegetables chopped in advance are more nutritious than no vegetables at all. So just chop them. Stop complaining. Just chop the vegetables. This is what I mean when I say we sabotage our own progress. Like, we could be our own best allies, but we become our worst enemies because we make all these excuses, right? So just chop the vegetables in advance. Plan in advance. We never make the best decisions when we decide to have what to eat, like at dinner time. We never make the best choices when we're already hungry. We're already hungry. So I believe that we should know in our minds at dinner time what we're having the next day for dinner time. It might mean that you're doubling something up so you can have leftovers the next day. It might mean that you chop those 2 onions instead of 1 so you have something. So you're always ahead of the game, right? And that doesn't take time, that just takes thinking. Just thinking about what you have in the refrigerator really makes a huge difference. Always just knowing in advance, right? So planning in advance. Does this make sense? This is doable? This is not crazy. This is not something that is so crazy. It's just a matter of kind of recalibrating the way we think and making some habit changes. And I know we're all capable of that. So around food and self-perception, we also have these ideas. I hear from people who say, well, I tried being vegetarian or I tried being vegan, but I craved meat. They say, and I said, yeah, you weren't craving meat. And they go, no, I was craving meat. And then I ate meat and I felt better. I said, well, you weren't craving meat. We're not obligate carnivores. We're not lions on the plain who see gazelles run by and we start chasing after the gazelles, right? If you want to know what it's like to crave the flesh of another animal, imagine what a domestic cat looks like. I have 2, I see it all the time. They see a bird, they just get completely fixated on that bird. And their eyes dilate, and their tail starts to flicker, and their teeth start to chatter, and they drool a little bit. Is that how you get? When you see a bird fly across the window, or when you're driving and you see some cattle grazing on the side of the road. Got it, everybody's, right? That's not how we get, because we're not obligate carnivores, because we don't crave the flesh of another animal. So it wasn't flesh that we were craving when we say it was craving. And I use the word craving very loosely. We tend to use the word craving when we really have a desire for something, but we want to make it a physiological necessity, so we call it craving. Usually it's that it's a habit and you're used to it. Or, and I still use this word loosely, we are craving fat, salt, texture, flavor, or familiarity, not the flesh of another animal. And if it's fat, it might be something as simple as having, yes, one of the wonderful vegan burgers that are out there these days that make it very easy for people to transition from animal-based Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers. They're very fatty, but that might satisfy someone, especially during the transition, right? It could just be an avocado. It could be peanut butter. It could be peanuts, nuts, seeds. So adding fat, having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, adding some almond butter to a smoothie, et cetera, right? Having guacamole on a burrito, that'll satisfy the fat. If it's salt, have some salt. You can sprinkle some salt. If you're not eating animal products, you're eating a lot less sodium than you would if you were eating animal products. So you can afford to have a little flavor. Salt brings out the flavor in food. If it's texture, you know, it's a matter of having something chewy. If it's something creamy you want, you can make a cashew cheese. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can create the different textures we want. If it's flavor, raise your hand if you've if you have spices in your house. Anybody have spices? Raise your hand if you have dust on any of those spice jars. Raise your hand if you've had those spices for more than a year. I know more people would raise their hand. 2, 3, yeah. We have these spices on our little shelves that are really cute, and then we say, God, the flavor, our food is so bland. Our food is bland. We don't have any flavor on the food. Put the spices on your food, right? Right? People say, I tried being vegetarian and vegan, but like the food was really bland. Really? Because what do you flavor your meat with? You flavor your hot dogs and hamburgers with relish and ketchup and mustard and chutneys and barbecue sauce. Am I right? We flavor our meat with plants. So use the plant foods, use the spices, right? Salt, fat, texture, flavor, familiarity. Familiarity could just be something that we're just used to seeing in a particular form. It could be a burger that's in a bun. It could be a macaroni and cheese. So these are the things that I recommend that people try when they're saying that they actually crave meat. Fat, salt, texture. Repeat after me because you're falling asleep. Fat, salt, flavor, familiarity, and texture. Thank you. It was like texture. So those are the things around craving food, right? And then I hear from people who say, well, I would be vegetarian. I don't want to contribute to cruelty to animals. I could do it. I could give up meat. Most people don't think they're eating any meat anyway. So that's easy. I would say that to them if they say, well, I don't eat a lot. I'm like, well, it'd be very easy for you to stop them completely. So people who say that I would do it, I could give up beef, I could give up pork, I could give up meat, but I could never give up X. And X is usually cheese. You've heard that before. Interesting. So everybody says I could give up meat, but I could never give up cheese. And I usually say to them, well, what are you eating now? And they say, well, everything. I said, but you just said you could give up everything, but you couldn't give up cheese. The idea that we do nothing at all because we think we have to do everything makes absolutely no sense, and it's completely self-defeatist. Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything. Anything we do moving in that direction is going to bring us closer to the people we want to be, the health we want to have, the animals we want to help. But to do nothing at all because we think we have to do everything doesn't make any sense. And it certainly doesn't make any changes. It doesn't make a difference. And people do ask me if I really think all of this can make a difference. And my answer is no. I don't think we can make a difference. I know we do make a difference. Everything we do, everything we eat, everything we buy has an impact on someone or something else. We don't get to decide whether we can make a difference or not. We get to decide only if the difference we inevitably make is negative or positive. That's it. Those are our only two choices. There are no neutral actions. And so that is my hope for all of us, is that we recognize the power we have. I think recognizing that we actually have the agency to do something to make a difference in this world is incredibly empowering, and it's incredibly frightening. It's frightening because it means that we have the power and we can actually make a difference. And it's empowering because we can make a difference. And so that's my hope for all of us, is that we recognize this, we recognize that we can make a huge difference in this world, and that we reflect our deepest values in our daily behavior and create the world we all envision. And may it be so. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Always wanted to do that. Thank you very much. Don't go, because I wanted to make sure we had time to chat, because I had, we have a limited amount of time. I have to run out of here. It's my husband's birthday today, and so, I know. So we're heading up to Napa with some friends for dinner. We're going to a winery. We're having a cave dinner, non-vegan winery. Chef is making everything for us beautifully. I'm not going to say vegan, because duh, it's vegan. So making a beautiful dinner for us. So I'm going to have to cut out. I think I can answer a couple questions individually, but we do have time for some Q&A here now. We definitely have some time for that. And I think this is just such an important time. So whatever questions you have, you can ask for a friend if it's not really your own question. So do we have a microphone? Great, for a question. Great, fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Is it on there?
Yes, you have to speak up there, Patty.
Anyway, please tell everyone how we can hear your podcast, because one day a year is not enough to hear you.
Oh, that's very sweet.
So tell everyone how we can hear you anytime we want.
My poor husband's like, there's enough. I've heard quite enough. Patty's asking how to get in touch. So joyfulvegan.com is my website. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on there quite a bit. Facebook, forget it. It's impossible to get any of my posts out there unless you pay for everything. But Instagram, I'm on there a lot. I've been doing a podcast for 13 years called Food for Thought. Podcasts are finally coming into their own, but most people know what a podcast is these days. You can find them on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also go to Joyful Vegan. You can find everything there. I am writing my 7th book. It's called The Joyful Vegan, everything you need to stay vegan in a world that wants you to keep eating meat, dairy, and eggs. So it's a really good follow-up to the 30-Day Vegan Challenge, because it's really talking a lot about the social aspects and kind of what happens once you become vegan. I'm talking about coming out, I'm talking about anger, I'm talking about evangelism and fundamentalism, I'm talking about community and conversation. So there's a lot there. So if you're on the mailing list at joyfulvegan.com, you can find out more about it. Thank you, Patty. I don't know.
Okay.
Food for thought. So I don't know if I'm in serious, but like, I would say everything else, but maybe not serious. Joyful, food for thought. Food for thought. We have a question.
Do you take multivitamin or supplements, or just if you have a deficiency or something, or do you take it preventatively at all?
That's a great question. So the question is, do I take a multivitamin, or am I just concerned about making sure you're taking it for preventative, or if you have a deficiency? I'm someone who believes in preventive care. I do take a multivitamin that has B12, and I do take omega-3 DHA specifically. So I'm a believer in just using it for insurance. We don't eat the same every day. I could tell you right now, I'm a very healthy eater. And there's days when I have popcorn for dinner. That's just the way it is. Again, we all have this perception of ourselves, and it doesn't necessarily match reality. So for insurance, to make sure that we are getting all the nutrients we need, a multivitamin that has B12, and then I also take a DHA. And then it changes a little bit too, and I talk about this in the 30-Day Vegan Challenge, because as we get older, it also changes. If we have different issues in terms of digestion, it might change. Obviously, it changes if you're younger, if you're a baby. But the nutrient requirements for vegans are the same as they are for non-vegans. It just changes according to your age, and it's a matter of where you're getting the nutrients from. I don't right now take calcium other than what's in the multivitamin, but soon I'll have to, because I'm getting up there. Really annoying. Yeah, after 50, it changes, so for sure. So I will probably take calcium in addition, for sure. But you can find that information. So if you just go anywhere for what are the nutrient requirements for all the different ages, you can find that, and you'd get it in a multivitamin. And I will repeat the question if we don't get the microphone over to you, so that everybody can hear it. So stay with us. Yes.
I have Sjogren's syndrome, and they've been better than others, but I am going low vision now. I don't turn away pain, and reading nutritional labels is getting harder.
Yeah.
There's some humorous to say about that.
Oh, that's true. God, it is getting harder to read nutrition labels. I know. I did just have to get reading glasses. I was just really bummed. It's true. I was really bummed, but they're cute. They're really cute. And what a difference when you put them on. Like, I can actually read the things there. But it is really difficult. I'm like, things are getting smaller, or not. Maybe it's me. So that's a good question about the nutrition labels and how it's getting more difficult. Gosh, I mean, that is, I can't solve that particular problem. Yeah, I would say probably just making sure you have a magnifying glass or something to be able to read those. I know, and it's getting harder. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I don't read the nutrition labels a lot in the sense that I don't rely on packaged foods for my nutrients. So I might read it for calories or something like that, but I don't necessarily read it for my nutrients. So I just, I rely on the variety of whole foods that I eat throughout the day to ensure that I'm getting the nutrients I need and the vitamin, the multivitamin as a insurance, but I don't really rely a lot on the packaged foods. Yes.
Talk about the colors of foods, because when I fix my steamed vegetables and salads, if I get a lot of colors in them, people really say, oh, that looks great. It's the colors. Really get people going.
I know. That's why my third book was called Color Me Vegan. I agree with you. It's amazing. When people ask me, because again, I am not someone, I do not follow a particular diet. I am not a fan of one particular diet over another. People say, is vegan healthy? Vegan what? There's a huge spectrum of how you can eat vegan. Like, it doesn't even make any sense to me. You could have no oil, no sugar, no wheat, all sugar, all blue foods, no blue foods. It doesn't matter. There's a huge spectrum of how we eat as vegans. But if I were to tell you what I think is the most nutrient-dense way to eat by color. Just eat as much color as you can, a variety of color, and you will get a variety of not only the vitamins and minerals, but also the phytonutrients. So in Color Me Vegan, I know it's very fascinating. I broke the book up by color. I didn't just, he's not a plant. He's really not a shell. So I broke it up by color, and what's amazing about color is that there are all the different phytonutrients that create the different, aroma or the different colors or the different tastes in the foods. They affect the different organs in our bodies. Now we know this because we've all heard, like, carrots are good because of the carotenoids that are in carrots are good for our eyes. But that's what's so fascinating is, like, they really glom on to our retinas. For instance, that's why it's called retinol. That's why vitamin A is called retinol, because it's related to our retinas. We know that lycopene is good for the prostate because it's related directly to the prostate. I don't have that. It doesn't help my prostate at all. But that's the idea, and that's so fascinating to me. And you can just get so many more different phytonutrients by eating a variety of different colored foods. So thank you. Color Me Vegan, third book. You can find it anywhere where books are sold. Yes. So I am not a nutrition expert, so do not take any of my particular words as advice from a medical professional, because I am not one. But yeah, look, B12 deficiency is not just prevalent in vegetarians and vegans. It's prevalent in non-vegans as well. So it has a lot to do with absorption. And you have to understand too, so getting it directly from a pill versus meat is number one, a lot better, because there are a lot of problematic ways to hinder the absorption if you're getting it through meat. So getting it through the supplement is better. Sublingual is even better because it doesn't have to go through the whole bloodstream, so that's even better. So you can find out a lot of these particulars. But because it's a water-soluble nutrient, you can take a lot more than is even recommended, and you'll notice that a lot of them are so high in the micrograms because you can go way over because it's water-soluble. So about 500 micrograms a day, which you can take them daily or you can take them weekly. I think for a habit, it's better to take them daily or just get it in your multivitamin. And if you can read the labels, you'll notice that even in a multivitamin, it's way over the recommended daily allowance. So the answer is yes, absolutely. But making sure you're consistent. So a lot of vegans will say, well, nutritional yeast has B12. Well, not reliably and not consistently. And who eats nutritional yeast every day? I mean, I almost do. But my cats do. They love nutritional yeast on their food, by the way. If you have a little tip, if you're ever trying to get medicine in your cats, they love nutritional yeast on their food. So they actually do eat nutritional yeast every day, but I don't. So reliably taking it through a multivitamin or through an individual supplement. Yeah. Yes.
On that same subject, I had a friend last night that said, well,
She had a friend. This is for a friend.
it really was a friend.
I believe you.
I don't agree. But she said, if you can only get
Well, I don't know if you heard me earlier. So cattle and chickens would normally be getting it through plants, and they're not. So the reason people are actually even getting any vitamin B12 who are eating meat, it's because the meat industry supplements the feed of the cattle and the chickens with B12. No, they have to eat it through the bacteria that's in the soil that comes up through the plant.
So wipe out the middleman, get rid of the cow, and just take the
So get rid of the cow and just take the B12. And when you do that, because that's what's so really funny, because people will say, well, I don't want to take a B12 supplement because it's not natural. I'm sorry, there is nothing natural about animal agriculture. It is the antithesis of nature. That's what agriculture is. It's controlling plants or animals, because it's not nature. So the point is there's nothing natural about it, and there's nothing natural about it in terms of certainly the way the meat industry supplements their feed with B12. 90%, I think it is, of the B12 that's made is actually fed directly to the livestock. Yeah. Does that help?
Yes.
Any more questions? Yes.
What are you feeding your cat?
I feed my cats meat. I do feed my cats meat. They are obligate carnivores. I have podcasts on this and videos on this. They consume aquatic animals. I don't feed them chicken or beef, but they do eat fish, and they eat canned food. I've had cats with every ailment you could imagine, and for male cats, I just don't feed them dry food for that reason, because male cats have a lot of problems with the urinary tract. So they do eat meat, yes. And that's why I'm really excited about clean meat and all the technologies that are coming around, because the idea that we'd be able to produce meat without killing any animals is pretty exciting. So thanks, everybody. I hope you're going to stick around for Dr. Milton Mills. Thanks, everyone.